Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And you can always follow my work through RSS, through email blasts. You can always follow me on Twitter at Porkins Policy. You can also subscribe on YouTube and also on iTunes. And soon, I know I sound like a broken record, but soon on some other podcatchers like TuneIn and Google Play and a bunch of others. I will be getting to that momentarily. Apologies, faithful listeners, if there's a little bit more background noise than usual. It is currently, as I am speaking to you right now, we're about 91 degrees outside, and it's about 100 degrees inside my apartment right now. So all the windows are open. I've got the door open for a little cross breeze action going on. I was telling my guest Tom before we were on air, I've got an ice pack under my laptop trying to keep it cool, trying to keep myself cool. So, if you hear a little bit more average noise, that's why. But I think, faithful listeners will, of course, know what it's like listening to me when it gets hot out in the summer. But before we get to today's show, very quickly, I want to thank David for becoming a recent subscriber on Patreon. So thank you so much, David. And of course, thank you to everybody who subscribes on Patreon. You can always support my work there for as little as $1 a month. And also thank you to Kai and Andrew for your very generous donations on PayPal. So very exciting. And just some quick updates on some future episodes, things that we're going to have coming out. Pat McKenna will be joining me again next Tuesday on the 20th, hopefully for another 2 hours, and we're going to discuss much more about the O.J. Simpson trial. I think we're going to really kind of dive into the timeline and talk about the prosecution's timeline versus Pat's timeline. Hopefully we'll be referencing Brian Heiss's wonderful timeline of Ronald Goldman's movements on the night in question. And hopefully the week after that, on the 27th, we're going to get Keelan Balderson back on, hopefully for 2 hours, but at least 1 hour to talk some updates on the Manchester bombing. Keelan's got a good article up right now on wideshut.co.uk. So you can check that out with some of the victim inquests. So we'll be having that on. But enough of me babbling on with updates. Joining me today is Tom Secker, and soon Robbie Martin will be on the line with us. I think he should be Robbie should be here in about 15 minutes or so. But Tom Secker, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, and looking forward to talking to you again.
As am I. Quickly, before we kind of dive into what we're going to be getting into today, Tom, I guess we should mention, we would be remiss if we did not mention that a famed whistleblowing outlet, Wikileaks, apparently is a fan of our issue of the American Journal of Economics and Sociology. At least the Twitter account is. So just the other day, I think I was on the phone with you, Tom, talking, and a listener of mine, I'm trying to pull it up right now, Zebra Cat, tweeted me saying, quote, "Wow, looks like Assange is one of your listeners." And then it was a link to the WikiLeaks account. So this was on the 12th of June at 2:57 a.m. WikiLeaks tweeted about our journal, and I guess, Tom, we're going to be talking kind of about, I'm sure we'll be mentioning WikiLeaks in this episode. We're going to be talking about Reality Winner, We're going to be talking about whistleblowers and leakers and things. So this is sort of an appropriate way to start it off. But what do you think about that? Because I don't think, I think we've been very clear in the past about our stance on WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, but I can't deny that it was pretty cool to see that WikiLeaks was tweeting it, especially that it's behind a paywall. So presumably somebody there must have paid to read this. I would hope. So what did you think about it?
Well, I mean, like you, it was kind of pleasing in its way. I suppose. I mean, whatever we may have said about WikiLeaks before, I mean, I go back and forth on this question is exactly to what sort of organization they really are and who's really pulling the strings and what they're really trying to accomplish. Because I'm sure there are plenty of very good people in WikiLeaks. I've met people who've worked for them, you know. It's not the notion that you can sort of tar anything with one simple brush, I think, is unwise. And both of us are probably a little bit guilty of that in the past. And I think we're much better at not doing it these days. And so, yeah, I mean, I have my issues with Assange, certainly. But it was still cool to see it. And it does make you wonder, who is it inside WikiLeaks who has access to academic journals online? Presumably it's someone working in academia, working for a university, and has actually read some of this issue, or possibly read all of it. But yeah, it's nice to see because we put a lot of work into that. Lots of other people put a lot of work into that. It was kind of a high point for us, and so therefore it's nice to see it actually getting picked up by someone, and by an organization that, for, you know, better or worse, whatever, has quite a big following. So hopefully it will get this subject out to the right sorts of people, to the sorts of people who would be interested in this, but maybe aren't aware of it and aren't aware of just how much evidence we now have for what's really going on in terms of the DOD and the CIA in Hollywood.
No, I completely agree. I think, like you said, as much as I have reservations about WikiLeaks and Assange and some of the people there, I think, like all organizations, there's obviously some real people that work there, some people that are doing good. And yeah, I think it's cool that in terms of it being a platform. And, you know, I scrolled through some of the replies to that tweet, and of course they're filled with a lot of you know, people bitching about, I don't even watch, you know, Hollywood films because it's all propaganda and nonsense. And a lot of people kind of, you know, tweeting about, I saw something about some, you know, chain of tweets from someone talking about the mummy and how the mummy is like is somehow connected to ISIS and Al Qaeda. You know.
Yeah, there's a whole thing in the mummy. I haven't watched it yet, but apparently the storyline is, instead of them digging up some ancient artifact in Egypt, they're digging it up in Iraq, and there's some kind of ISIS involvement, and there's like ruins that have been shot to pieces or blown up by ISIS. And yeah, it's very much set in the kind of modern day war on terror environment, which is an odd place to situate that kind of Indiana Jones style story, or at least that's what they were going for. Apparently reviews of the film have been very, very bad, so might not even bother watching it. But yeah, I mean, this is the thing, though. That's a film I've pegged, at least from watching the trailer, as probably DOD supported. There appears to be a fair amount of military hardware in the trailer, and that suggests, you know, Pentagon. So I can only assume so. I haven't seen it in documents yet. So the people who are tweeting about that aren't wrong at all, I would say. And just on the point of WikiLeaks, because we're still kind of trying to wait for Robbie to show up.
Yeah. I think Robbie will be here in about, he said 12:20 his time. So we've got, you know, we've got about another 15 minutes. But we can always start without Robbie. But what were you saying, Tom?
Well, simply that one of the things I've criticized WikiLeaks for in the past is their tendency to team up with big media organizations, Der Spiegel, The Guardian, people like that, rather than just kind of dumping their sources online and maybe trying to write introductory articles explaining to people, you know, what's this all about? What's the relevant stuff here? But more recently, that's actually been their exact tactic. That's been their way of operating. And I think something's changed in that organization. Strategies have changed. I think, to be honest, I've seen a lot of people in the last 18 months, year, maybe 2 years, turning against the big media organizations for their handling of this whole process, whether it be Snowden, WikiLeaks, whatever, but this whole subject that has bubbled up in the last 10 years because of big data, the internet, so on and so forth. And I think that change of tactic is worthy of praise, because that's always what I've tried to do. That, like, rather than whatever, build up a big collection of documents and then try and sell a story to The Guardian, I just kind of try and dump it all online and say, try and make it write about it and talk about it on my podcast in an interesting way that will actually get people to understand what this stuff is. And that I think is the appropriate approach when you're talking about whatever it is, whether it's, government documents, private corporate documents, court filings, whatever it is that you're dealing with in terms of a paper trail. I think that's actually the most responsible thing to do right now, given the way the internet actually works. I mean, let's face it. These days, you can put articles up on social media and they actually get read more than the article on The Guardian would have done. It's now actually reached that point that the internet is sufficiently interneted, because of social media and because of, the widespread use of smartphones and broadband internet and all the rest of it. It's now actually got to a point where there are channels of distributing information that are, at times, greater than the mainstream media. And so I'm all in favor of, ride the crest of that wave. See if it can actually sustain for a while. See if it can actually make a sustained threat towards the mainstream media. And like I say, I think the WikiLeaks approach as of maybe 2014 onwards is better and much more worthy of praise.
You just sort of on that just sort of got me thinking, it obviously, and this is something that, Tom, you and I have been sort of chatting about privately for the past couple of months, is just this sort of the change that there does seem to be a real distinction now between WikiLeaks, the organization as it exists as this platform for leakers, for whistleblowers, and Julian Assange, the man, the face of WikiLeaks. And particularly when you look at things such as the Twitter account. The Twitter account for WikiLeaks is markedly different from what Julian Assange says. And at times you even kind of see Assange coming out in favor of somebody such as a Reality Winner, and WikiLeaks kind of either being quiet about it or coming out, opposite of that. And it's interesting again, you were pointing out there, the strategy of WikiLeaks, at least when it was sort of, Assange's baby, was very much, we're this counterculture group, we're this alternative platform, but let's use the New York Times, The Guardian, El País, all of these sort of major newspapers to get our sort of story out there, as opposed to, say, people like me, you, Aaron, Matt Alford, the people that were writing in the Journal. And it's interesting to see WikiLeaks, again, the Twitter account, promoting stuff that we're doing versus, what's the latest thing that Julian Assange is talking about? How great Sean Hannity is. And, being offered to guest host Sean Hannity's syndicated radio show. It's like, that's where WikiLeaks is, or that's where Assange is sort of gone. And I understand that he's under some probably tough circumstances. I don't think anybody wants to live inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London. That doesn't sound like the most fun. And,
nope.
He's got to be an unwelcome guest at this point. But, it is fascinating, again, seeing this sort of evolution going on and this sort of change and to see Assange basically go from, you can make a case for leaking, State Department memos and things of that nature to mainstream newspapers. Okay, whatever. There's a case to be made for that. But guest hosting Sean Hannity's radio show to essentially promote some bizarre theory about Kim.com and Seth Rich and Hillary Clinton and the DNC leaks and all of this sort of stuff. I mean, that seems very, that's like almost like two different Julian Assanges. And it's bizarre that that's seemingly one of at least the sort of career paths that he's taking. And maybe that's out of desperation or something.
Or the way he sees it is that he's been cooped up in an embassy for several years and not really been able to do an awful lot. And so now he's basically going to take any opportunity that anyone puts in front of him.
Yes.
And you can criticize that. You can sympathize with it. It's a bit of both, to be honest, from me. And I think one of the things that kind of bugs me about it is that Assange always, or not always, but tended to be one of those people who kind of poo-pooed conspiracy theories, or what would be recognized at the time as conspiracy theories. But now conspiracy theory has gone completely mainstream, and certainly mainstream American politics is absolutely riddled with this stuff. It's like, yeah, he's got no problem anymore. Now he'll go and talk about, I don't really know what happened to Seth Rich. I haven't followed it closely enough to have a firm opinion, frankly, and so there you go. But I don't see an awful lot of good coming out of hanging around with Kim.com and Sean Hannity and expressing various weird conspiracy theories about what may or may not have happened. I'm not sure that that's the best thing for him to be doing, given the amount of light he has on him, given the amount of attention that it's automatically going to get because of who he is and what he's done in the past. So, yeah, well, and like you, I have some reservations about this. I really do.
Yeah, and especially given the fact that Sweden has dropped the rape charges against him, that's somewhat of a victory. You can, however you want to view that, you can see this as some sort of vindication that Assange was right, that these were trumped up, that this was political or something of that, of that ilk. Yet, and instead of capitalizing on that and, continuing speaking truth to power, you're jumping on the Seth Rich bandwagon. And I don't really even think Assange believes that. I think it's sort of I don't know, it's some sort of distraction or some sort of, maybe he does realize where these DNC leaks came from originally. And, and this is a way of sort of distracting from all of that. I don't know. It's very sort of odd, in what's going on. But anyway, while we're waiting for Robbie, and I think, I just saw, Danny, Robbie just, came on Skype, so you can probably, try giving him a call on his phone right now. But, let's kind of get into, a bit what we were going to talk about, Tom, and then we'll kind of fill Robbie in. But we wanted to, discuss Reality Winner, because this is like, I don't know, the latest sort of iteration of both this sort of celebrity leaker / whistleblower, and I guess she's not really a whistleblower per se. She really is a leaker. I don't think she's really blown the whistle on anything. Although you could make a case for that. But Tom, what do you make of Reality Winner? Do you think she's for real? What do you make of these allegations too? Should we, when I saw this, I just sort of was like, initially, well, whatever. This is just like another sort of media story that's being created by the anti-Trump people that hate Russia. And this is just the next version of that. End of story. But what do you make of Reality Winner and of these allegations?
Well, like you, when I first saw the story, it didn't really register that highly on my attention meter. I didn't really give a damn, to be honest. But then I started to read pieces about how The Intercept had dealt with this, how they dealt with this document that Reality Winner had leaked to them. And in digging into that, I started to wonder, was this done deliberately? Was the end result of this process always going to be that this leaker would end up arrested and identifiable by the authorities, and the Intercept was simply, I don't know, playing along with that in some way, however wittingly or unwittingly? And so then you start to look at Reality Winner herself, and you wonder, what does a relatively young, not particularly experienced language specialist, someone who specializes in languages that would be spoken in Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, that area of the world, what's she doing working for a government contractor, being allowed access to a top-secret NSA report about Russian cyber espionage relating to the election? I don't see what the connection is there. And then you look at how she herself basically guaranteed that she would be identified and arrested. I mean, she posted this in regular mail from her hometown, so it's postmarked, where she lives and works. As far as we know, there's going to be her DNA and fingerprints all over this. She prints out the document on a, office printer, so it records. There was this story about the microdot that records, who has printed this and when and why. Well, not why, but yeah, you know what I mean. And you look at all these details that she took no real precautions to cover up where the document had come from. In fact, she basically outed herself to any investigator who got their hands on that envelope. Then the Intercept do the exact same thing. They're going around asking the NSA, can you tell us if this report is accurate? Can you tell us if it's authentic? They send a, scanned copy of it to them, so they too have a copy of this, original thing. The whole process just seems to have it's either been bungled in the most outrageously stupid way, both by Reality Winner herself in the first place and then by the people at the Intercept, or the whole point of this, or at least the inevitable result of this, and the accepted inevitable result of this, was that she would end up being identified and arrested. And it seems she's copped to it pretty much straight away. So it seems that she's quite happy to go to prison for this. So we have to wonder, is this more about... I kind of hate to reduce stories to this, but is it more about one young lady's delusions of grandeur and desire for attention than it is about anything else? I mean, there are other elements to this, most certainly. I'm not just saying we should ignore them. I'm just saying from a kind of general perspective at this point in time, I'm wondering if that's what we're actually watching. In which case, the whole thing is very reminiscent of Homeland. In fact, in almost every respect, this is very reminiscent of Homeland. Like I was saying to you last night when we were chatting about this. When was the last time that a leaker or a whistleblower or someone leaked or blew the whistle on a story that was right in the headlines right now, rather than a more general issue such as mass surveillance or the war on terror or something? When was it, bang on, this is what everyone is talking about right now, it's the story since the election, the one that just won't go away. And here she is leaking this top secret report that completely plays into that. When does that happen? So there again, you have this, ripped from the headlines story, just like on Homeland. You have this, it seems somewhat disturbed and narcissistic young blonde woman, kind of like on Homeland. And she's called Reality Winner.
Yeah.
Which is the most surreal thing in the history of whistleblowers. So none of this makes me believe, at least, that this is a sincere whistleblowing event and that's, why this originated and what motivated this. I really don't think that's what's going on. And like I say, I do wonder, is the kind of the bottom line here, one rather pathologically crazy young woman doing this and destroying her life in the process, but also becoming famous and going down in history in the process.
No, I mean, it wouldn't be, while that might sound a little kind of, extreme, I mean, that's why, that's why people assassinate famous people, ultimately to become famous. So, is it all that and I think that was, like you said, at first I wondered, the conspiracy theorist in me, of course, says, is this some larger plot, Mm-hmm. Is Reality Winner, the quote unquote deep state agent that, of course, the right wing, wants to kind of go on and on about. And instantly, of course, you had all of the sort of usual suspects, kind of going on, and you say, oh, she's a deep state agent, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. But you do kind of wonder if in fact, is the simplest answer, really what it is? Sort of moving, and it kind of reminded me, because a lot of people online, are sort of, going on and on about this, like, Reality Winner, this is like these are the type of people that, I guess because she started working when Obama was still president, it's like, these are the type of people that, want to work for Obama. And of course, making these veiled references that she wants to join the Taliban and Bo Bergdahl. And, a lot of people started talking, her and Bo Bergdahl, again, very naive, white, middle class, kind of idiots. And that got me to thinking again, is this sort of a case of, it's sort of like the movie Being There with Peter Sellers, where everyone is just sort of projecting their own ideas, and Reality Winner is so weird and so sort of amorphous as a person. Because, of course, she's being portrayed in the media as either, according to her parents, she's a patriot and the sweet, innocent girl, or on the other side, she's manipulating everybody. She's telling her parents what to say to the media, back and forth. And this is really more a matter of, this is just whatever you want Reality Winner to be, she will be. And Robbie Martin is joining us on the line. How are you, Robbie?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. And, sorry about the technical difficulties there with getting you on the call, but you are here now, and you're jumping right in the middle of Reality Winner in our discussion. So let's get your take, Robbie. What do you make of Reality Winner and of these allegations? What do you think is going on here?
Well, the brief piece I heard of you talking about her, I think the Chauncey Gardner theory about her lines up with my own thoughts pretty much. In case any listeners out there don't understand the reference, that's the lead character of Being There, that Tom was just describing. Is he on the line with us too?
Yeah, Tom's here.
Oh, hey Tom, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, Robbie. How are you?
Pretty good. So Reality Winner, it's a really, really strange thing. I mean, it is making people go a little crazy, I think, because of first of all, the name is so over the top. And I mean, if I'm just going to really quickly describe my own take on it, I mean, I think that everything that I've seen on the surface level seems to line up with what's really going on. I don't think that she's some kind of deep state agent. I mean, I think that this narrative of the deep state versus Trump has taken on cartoonish proportions, to the point where the term deep state has almost been rendered meaningless now by a lot of Trump's own base. But I mean, I think that she's probably, was very naive, was obviously very young. And I mean, from what I've seen about her, everything seems to line up with a naive, whistleblower who thought she was doing the right thing, in some ways more so than Snowden. I mean, I have more questions about Snowden than I do about Reality Winner, but I mean, in a way, I guess the only side angle I have with Reality Winner is that it does seem like after Trump basically decided to purge all leakers from his administration, this war on leakers that's being waged behind the scenes, I think it's very possible that she basically fell into a trap that was set for her. That Trump was so determined to catch leakers that he might have found someone in the lower down ranks who has obvious anti-Trump opinions. I mean, she was saying things on social media that were quite partisan and quite anti-Trump. I think it's likely that, someone, if she is an NSA employee, I would assume that NSA employees are putting, under even greater scrutiny than the general public in terms of the NSA spying grid. So I think it's possible she just, it was a very easy to set a trap for an NSA employee like that, and she fell into it. They basically, got the most low-hanging fruit they could have possibly obtained in terms of catching a leaker. So that's partly where I'm going with it. And I also think, it's possible that the Trump administration wanted to simultaneously burn the intercept. If they really were dumb enough to reveal, or to make it easier for them to catch her. That part I'm not so clear on. I don't know if the printer dots was what made it easier, to catch her or not. I'm still not certain about that. I know a lot of people are talking about the printer dot code right now. That's a little still up in the air for me. I think it's very possible they were monitoring her from the moment she decided to become a whistleblower. From the very first time she interacted with the Intercept reporter. So that's where I'm at with it right now.
No, I was talking about this with Tom a few days ago, but along those same lines, Robbie, I mean, this, reminds me very much of the sort of textbook case of a quote whistleblower, who reveals something about UFOs or aliens. And you get these guys that have real security clearance that work at, some, military base that does all sorts of bizarre things out in the desert. It doesn't have to be Area 51, but, there's lots of these places. You sort of, through the grapevine learn that they're sort of into UFOs or have, attended something. And then suddenly they're presented with some sort of information and knowing they're presented with this with the knowledge that of course they're going to tell somebody. They're going to leak this out. And then suddenly, it becomes a sort of big media story or it becomes part of UFO mythology and whatnot. And that to me seems a bit of the case with Reality Winner, where they had to know, because I mean, Tom, you brought this up to me a few days ago. She's a language specialist that is she's fluent in like Farsi, Pashto, and maybe something else. I can't remember. What was she even doing, accessing with NSA cables that supposedly showed the GRU, monitoring U.S. elections? I mean, and hopefully we'll figure this out, but I mean, was she accessing this, or did somebody come to her and give her this? Or was this, accidentally left on her computer, so that, and knowing that she would see it and then get all huffy and puffy and angry about it and eventually, lead her to leak something and of course she goes to the Intercept, just like Snowden, which is, also kind of odd to me. But, I mean, we don't even know really the sort of steps that took place, but, all of that kind of leads me to believe that they almost, like you said, Rob, they wanted her to do this, that they put her in a situation where this might happen. And I posed this to Tom, the other day when we were talking. I'll pose it to you, Robbie, and then I'd like to get your thoughts on this again, Tom. But I mean, I know that this is being spun as the anti-Trump crowd is behind this, but could this be the Trump administration actually pulling the strings? As you said, a message to would-be leakers and whistleblowers, and also, just a way of kind of flexing their muscles, showing that they're serious about all of this, and making an example of her.
Well, I think I'm leaning definitely more towards that this is a Trump psyop of some kind, designed to scare others, from leaking, and also to simultaneously show something that at first seems like, oh, this could be evidence of Russian hacking, but then when you actually look at it, it's not, and it's more just an assessment and sort of a blanket theory that these spear phishing attempts somehow were an attempt to disrupt our election. I mean, the document itself proves absolutely nothing. So I think one of the big things being missed here in the sort of the alt media narratives in regards to Trump is it's working within the framework that there are all these Obama loyalist insiders or intelligence community holdovers that are essentially what these people mean by the deep state. And they're trying to take out Trump through various leaks and psychological operations of their own. I mean, I think that there is some truth to that, but it's not, but it's missing a whole other part of the equation, which is, what is Steve Bannon, this master media manipulator, the guy who took over Breitbart after Andrew Breitbart died, what is his role in running counter narratives and running psyops from within the White House to counter these things? You know, I mean, Trump himself is tweeting things to try to take, you know, to try to generate headlines to distract away from certain things, like this recent thing where the narrative is now Comey is the leaker. He broke the law. You know, that's sort of the narrative right now that's a counter up. But what is, you know, we have to realize that Steve Bannon is the John Podesta, he is the Karl Rove of previous administrations. What is his role right now in running some of these counter narratives? And I think that needs to be closely examined, but not just his role, but what is the White House doing to run their own psyops? And I think this reality winner thing could definitely be, in that framework. I mean, especially, what makes me think that that's even more possible is Mike Pompeo was concern trolling WikiLeaks when he read out that, you know, the plans to indict Julian Assange. He actually quoted from a Sam Biddle Intercept article, as a means to show how WikiLeaks is irresponsible. So I thought that was very interesting. So people in the CIA are reading the Intercept. So, and I don't know. I mean, it is awfully stupid if the indictment is real, if we're to believe everything in the actual indictment itself, then it seems like the Intercept just willy-nilly will send things off to people inside the government, you know, for their confirmation or for advice or whatever, while sitting on a story that's about to be published. So I don't understand that process and why they would trust someone like that. I mean, if the indictment is to be believed, that their NSA contact, not reality winner, but their person that they would contact for advice and verification, turned them in and actually tipped off his superiors. So I don't quite understand that. And it also begs the question, how long has the Intercept been working with this snitch NSA, you know, advisor that's like passing on information to the government? I mean, how many stories has the Intercept published that have been informed by this guy that turned them in? That's another question that needs to be answered. That to me, you know, raises some credibility issues with any of the Intercept reporting having to do with the NSA. You know, on top of the fact that they're still hoarding most of the Snowden documents, and that adds another problematic factor to the whole thing. So,
when I think there's also, I was just listening about this the other day on, I can't even remember the name of the podcast now, but that, you know, the Intercept also, you know, there's tons of stories that the Intercept has gotten that, again, as you say, you know, they sort of run them up to their contact at the NSA, and then they're basically, no, you can't run that. And the Intercept says, oh, okay, sure. So yeah, I mean, how many, you know, how many stories is the Intercept not running because whatever, national security or this and they're basically just told, you know, kind of no. And, you know, quickly, Tom, I want to throw it to you, but, you know, this is also, again, everybody out there who thinks that, you know, the deep state is after Trump and all this is, again, to keep in mind that cases like this, let's pretend like Reality Winner is the Snowden of the Trump administration. They're in on it. They're, of course, you know, it's not like Snowden came out of left field and got, you know, tricked Obama. Obama knew what was, you know, this was all part of a much larger plan. So perhaps Reality Winner is. Now, that doesn't mean that she's in on it necessarily, but that she was a pawn, that she was being used. Let's make an example. And two, I think that her personality and what we've been told in the media certainly plays into the Trump camp. You know, she's supposedly praising bin Laden in her journals that the FBI got. She wanted to, quote, burn the White House down, move to Kurdistan. You know, Fox News was saying that she was a Taliban sympathizer, even though the FBI and the prosecutor's office said, you know, she's not. That's not what we're trying to say. You know, she wasn't like joining up with ISIS or anything like that. But it does, you know, disgruntled female, and Tom, you know, as you pointed out, she's a race traitor, you know, so, cause she's white, you know, so how could she do this to, you know, to the great white hope, aka Trump? But I mean, Tom, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, me and Robbie diverge somewhat on this, in as much as, I mean, Robbie, you characterized her as naive. I characterized her as possibly deluded. But we can probably marry that up somehow, in that, I mean, whatever the truth of her psychological state, it doesn't seem that she thought through the consequences of this. Or if she did, she wanted to get caught. She actually, you know, saw that as somehow a good outcome. Either way, that's someone who is somewhat unstable and certainly not really thinking very rationally and very clearly about the consequences of their actions. Because she didn't do anything to try and stop herself from getting caught, and nor did The Intercept. But while you could say maybe she was just naive, maybe she is genuine and she did think she was doing the right thing, how on earth can The Intercept defend their actions in this? Because they did this like a week before they published the story. It's not like they phoned up the guy and said, look, we've got an hour. We need some kind of quote from you. And then we're going to publish it. They gave them days to assess this, decide what to do about it, for him to go and report to his superiors, for them to catch up with this young lady and arrest her, and now she's confessed to it. I mean, that's not journalism. This isn't, you know, it's incredible. I mean, if she wasn't embroiled in a pretty dreadful legal situation herself, she could sue them. Because they really have gone beyond any lines of what you should reasonably expect from a journalist in terms of if you hand over something like this or provide them with a story in some way as to how they treat it. They've just been incredibly irresponsible. And here again, you know, WikiLeaks, what was it? They tweeted out something about they're offering like 10 grand if The Intercept name and fire the person responsible for this mess. And, I mean, whatever. They should be named and fired, because this is dreadful stuff. This is a very bad way to treat anyone, whether they're genuine or not. The question of some kind of trap being laid, again, it goes back to how does a young, relatively inexperienced language specialist gain access to a top secret NSA report on a different subject entirely? As far as I know, from reading the court documents and the indictment and what have you, the NSA figured this out pretty quickly because there was only like half a dozen people who'd actually accessed this report, and I think only 2 people that had printed it. So that narrows it down. And it also indicates this was something on a very limited distribution. So again, how does she get access to it unless someone opened the door and kind of said, maybe you want to take a look at this or something? And yeah, you're absolutely right. They do monitor. They monitor all government employees' phones and social media and all the rest of it, but particularly if you've got any kind of security clearance. So they will have known what they were dealing with. And you have to wonder if someone has opened a door, like you say, Robbie, is this, they found someone who was motivated and perhaps naive or stupid or crazy enough to actually do this and take the dreadful consequences that are going to come their way. Maybe they found them, put them in a position to see this thing, left them for 5 minutes alone with the printer kind of thing, and the inevitable happened. Maybe that's what we're looking at here.
Well, and let me also just point out, again, I'll link up to this in the show notes, but the Intercept statement on the Justice Department allegations is really bizarre, too, because they say, quote, while the FBI's allegations against Winner have been made public through the release of an affidavit and search warrant, which were unsealed at the government's request, it is important to keep in mind that these documents contain unproven assertions and speculations designed to serve the government's agenda and warrant skepticism. And then they go on to basically kind of like, you know, say, well, we don't know who Reality Winner is. We don't know if this is the person. This is what we're being told. You know, the FBI and the government are, you know, we should be skeptical of them. But at the same time, they sort of say that you should be skeptical of these documents too, because we don't really know who they're from, and we're not going to say anything else on this. Even though, I mean, it's almost comical reading this statement because the speed with which this was like the Intercept publishes this article, and which is bizarre in and of itself because you know the Intercept was sort of playing the you know, not the pro-Russian card, but certainly we should be skeptical of every Tom, Dick, and Harry in Washington saying that Russia is behind Trump. Yet then they publish this bogus story, and then like a few days later, I go on Twitter and Reality Winner is trending all of a sudden. So I mean, and again, as you said, what's the Intercept's whole sort of deal with this? I mean, I don't know. I guess.
Well, let me ask you a question. Both of you, either of you, have the Justice Department or the FBI or anyone turned up at the Intercept's offices and grabbed hold of that copy of that document and the envelope it arrived in? Because that would be forensic evidence in this case. I mean, by now, any fingerprints or whatever will be completely smudged because so many people have handled it and they keep sending it to other people and what have you. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they should do that in this case. And I haven't seen anything in it.
I was just going to say, I think it's a scanned copy that was sent to them by Reality Winner. I mean, at least that's what it seems like it's saying in the indictment.
I thought they sent the scanned copy to the person at the NSA, and as far as we know, Reality Winner sent this by envelope. Just printed it out and shoved it in an envelope and posted it. So you would assume her DNA would be on that.
Yeah, I guess I missed that part of the indictment. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean they could do that. I mean this is the interesting to me is that she could have looked up the reporters who were working on this story and found that two of them have a track record of blowing their sources. Richard Esposito and Matthew Cole. I don't know if you guys read this John Kiriakou report about it, but apparently he's worked with these two journalists from the Intercept before, and they blew some sources that when he was talking to them and giving them information, which was very upsetting to him. So I don't know if Reality Winner did her research, before she spoke to these Intercept journalists. Because it's credited to 4 different journalists on there.
Right.
And before they released that statement, they were actually acting very excited about what this document supposedly showed. I mean, if you look on Twitter, all these different Intercept journalists, with the exception of Jeremy Scahill and Glenn Greenwald, were all very gung-ho on the idea that this was actually going to show evidence that Russia meddled in our election. It's clear that most of the people in the Intercept agreed with that assessment. So it is kind of strange that Greenwald and Scahill were sort of pulling back on it. And then within an hour is when that indictment dropped. It was almost like the federal government was waiting for that Intercept story to come out, and then they put the indictment out. It's a strange order of events. But yeah, it does seem to me like most of the people at the Intercept thought this was going to be a huge boon for the people who thought Russia meddled in our election. It was going to build on that narrative.
Or they thought this might be, their next, because I mean, honestly, it's like, what the fuck does the Intercept write? I mean, does anyone actually care what the output of the Intercept? I mean, there's like one decent writer that still works there, Trevor Anderson or Aronson. But other than that, I mean, there's nothing. And I think they thought this will be our new thing. This will be our new, Snowden, NSA stuff. And we can write endless articles regurgitating basically the same bits of facts. And every once in a while with a small, shit-colored nugget of something interesting, and we can kind of throw it out there. And then, within a few days, it just sort of imploded. I will say, too, interesting, leading up to this, Pierre Omidyar's Twitter account, he's constantly going on about Russia. And I noticed if people can, remember back to the whole Proper Not, that website that sprung up out of nowhere. Well, the Proper Not Twitter account has been very active about retweeting Pierre Omidyar and Pierre Omidyar retweeting Proper Not. So there's some sort of coordination there or what. And so it didn't totally surprise me that, the Intercept was sort of jumping on the Russia is evil bandwagon. I want to kind of continue this a little bit in the second hour because we're getting close to the break here. But I mean, quickly, guys, and we'll kind of continue on this. I mean, is this like the end of leakers and whistleblowing as we know it, or is this like the sort of like the in so many ways, it seems like Reality Winner is the sort of Donald Trump of leakers. Where it's like she like embodies that culture of Donald Trump, with the ridiculous name, and just sort of bizarre, attitude, and she speaks her mind, and, she's not, PC or cleaning it up or anything like that. Is this like, I was talking about this with you, Tom. I mean, the trajectory, this is not, Bill Binney. This is not a Russ Tice.
No.
This isn't even like an Edward Snowden, as much as I, have a lot of serious questions about that. Reality Winner is a very different, leaker than we've ever seen in the past. And is this sort of like is this what we should expect? I don't know. Tom, any thoughts on that?
Well, again, look at the thing that was actually leaked. It's an incomplete report that suggests that the GRU were behind several cyber espionage operations. It's not that they hacked into any voting machines or told anyone on Facebook how to vote or anything like that. Simply that they were trying to in some way gain access at a pretty low level to electoral registers and computers involved with the election and administration officials, all of that stuff. Okay, but what does that really add up to? Not an awful lot. And it's half a dozen pages of kind of not very interesting material, to be honest. And yet it's turned into this huge story because, like I said at the top, it's right on the button. It's ripped from the headlines. It's a leaker that has leaked something that feeds into a very much a current story, which we haven't seen before. All previous leakers, certainly the genuine ones, have been leaking about more bigger and broader, more general issues about this, security state or whatever. This is something very, very, very specific. I don't know if this is the future of whistleblowers, but like you both suggested, this does seem to, the way this is shaking out at least, it seems to be a warning to all of those Obama administration holdovers that may be thinking about leaking or doing something to try and undermine Trump. That they're now being faced with this is what's going to happen to you. That, if nothing else, we've got a very strong handle on what everyone is up to because our massive spying state is actually spying on all of you as well. So therefore, if you're thinking of doing anything like this, you're going to end up getting caught and you're going to end up in the slammer.
Robbie, quickly before we get to the break, any thoughts on this? And we'll continue this more in the second hour.
Well, Tom just brought up something that triggered a thought I was having yesterday about how someone who would be willing to put their whole career and freedom at risk for this seems odd to just leak one document that doesn't really prove anything. So I think I would like to throw some caution here to the idea that whatever the federal government, the only thing I agree with in that Intercept statement is we should not take the federal indictment and the leaks about Reality Winner necessarily at face value, because at this point we know that there's a smear machine going designed to make her look as horrible as possible. Even if she talked about how she's pretty young and white or whatever in the the jail phone call transcript. I mean, I'm still very hesitant to be like, oh, she's a dumb young, naive young idiot. Like it kind of has a similar flavor to Adrian Lamo's Chelsea Manning transcripts that leaked before the WikiLeaks even acknowledged that Manning was the source. Before Manning was even arrested, Wired magazine, with Kevin Paulson, I think, and some other people, basically threw Manning under the bus and made her look, they published the entire transcript, but it still was designed to be like, sort of like, look at this young millennial person who's like, has no idea how dangerous and harmful what they're doing is. It's kind of had the tone of that. So I just want to just throw some caution out there. Even if she seems dumb to us from what we're hearing in the media, she still did something that could be interpreted as heroic. We don't know what more things she leaked, what more things she stole. So I think we need to wait for a little bit for this to play out.
No, totally agree. And we'll continue this more in the second hour with Robbie Martin and Tom Secker.
basically narcotics.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio. You're an American institution. American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me. American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
Did you know there are 3 million edible food plants on Earth, and none have the nutritional value of the hemp plant? HempUSA.org offers you hemp protein powder. It does not contain chemicals or THC, is non-GMO, and is 100% gluten-free. Hemp protein powder burns fat, builds muscle, contains 53% protein, and feeds the body the nutrients it needs. Call 888-910-4367 and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org. HempUSA.org introduces 3 brand new detox formulations of micro plant powder. Brain Fuel for depression, bipolar disorders, and stress. Total Care, anti-cancer agent that cleans the liver and organs and increases memory. Rejuvenate, invigorates and heals the body, mind, and spirit. These products are your alternative to pharmaceuticals. Call 888-910-4367 and like us on Facebook. We ship worldwide. Only at HempUSA.org.
This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
What about show business? Show business, completely dishonest, corrupt, and full of shit, but in a nice way. Plenty of expensive drugs and perverted sex. If you're going to be full of shit, might as well enjoy your work. Then you have the media. Not just the news media, let's include them all. The media are almost literally exploding with bullshit because they're located right at the crossroads of all the other bullshit. The media are made up of equal parts advertising, politics, business, public relations, and show business. These people are sitting right at bullshit junction. There's enough bullshit in the media for Texas to open a branch office. And you still have enough left over to start 2 law firms and a Christian bookstore.
What has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Provide us with free education?
Well, that's obviously effective, but apart from reversing the dumbing down of America...
All the information they provide is free?
What about the free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, man?
Exploiting commonplace corruption?
They help vulnerable people who don't have a voice?
Bringing light to important information nobody else does. Or they never censor, hang up, or cut off their guests.
Well, that's no fun, is it?
Oh, they created a fantastic alternative media source during an era of bad, manipulative, and infiltrated mainstream and alternative media shows and scum.
Okay, well, apart from the free education, free information, free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, exposing commonplace corruption, helping vulnerable people without a voice, bringing light to important information nobody else does, and creating a fantastic commercial-free alternative media source in a sea of bad, manipulative mainstream and alternative media shills and scum, what has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Donate to American Freedom Radio today. No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Come and to you live from New York City. Your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you are just joining us right now in the second hour, we are joined by very good friends of the show, Tom Secker and Robbie Martin. We were discussing Reality Winner, this alleged NSA leaker who is caught up in she's been arrested. She's I think she could face something like up to 10, 15 years in prison, maybe more. We were sort of, Robbie, towards the end of the first hour, you were bringing up Chelsea Manning, and that sort of got me to thinking again, talking about whistleblowers or leakers and the sort of the character or the sort of the personality of these people. We've for whatever reason, leakers, whistleblowers have sort of become celebrity-like figures. And I guess they sort of always were and always will be because, if you're going up against the government, you're going to become somewhat famous and you're going to kind of become something of a celebrity. People are going to know who you are. Everybody sort of knows who Daniel Ellsberg is. Everybody definitely knows who Edward Snowden is, who Chelsea Manning is. And I would actually, say right now, for a lot of people that don't even really know what's going on, in Washington, probably know about Reality Winner, especially given the sort of, environment that we live in with social media and whatnot. So, I wanted to kind of pose this to you guys because I find it really interesting, the timing. Not that this is necessarily connected, but as Reality Winner is, about to go to trial and most likely jail, I think she will be jailed. I think she'll be the exception to the rule, that whistleblowers generally don't go to jail or they're only in jail for a short period. I have a sad feeling that Reality Winner will be in jail for a while. But as that's going on, we now have Chelsea Manning, emerging from prison, emerging from, everything that, that whole saga of whistleblowing and leaking was and whatnot. And of course, is no longer Bradley Manning. He's now Chelsea Manning. She's, done a New York Times magazine, photo shoot and interview. She's on ABC News, all these sorts of things. And I kind of want to get both of your perspectives on this because I'm having not trouble with this whole, the sort of media hype around Chelsea Manning, but it does seem as if, and this is something that Tom and I, were talking about, yesterday, and I'll throw this to you first, Robbie, but, to me, it, on the face of it, it looks as if almost whatever Bradley Manning did in terms of leaking, in terms of exposing all sorts of things like the collateral murder video, and that is almost sort of taken a bit of a back seat to Chelsea Manning, the trans activist or poster child for all these things. And I just sort of wonder about how that's being used in the media, because if you listen to Chelsea Manning, she is still very upfront about, I did this because it was right to do. I wanted to sort of start a conversation on all of this. And I think she's definitely succeeded on some level. Yet, suddenly now it's okay to love Chelsea Manning. She's a wonderful person. And this is even coming from people in the media, pundits that hated when she leaked all these documents. So, Robbie, what do you make of this sort of, this next step in all this? Because to me, it's sort of, again, it's like if Reality Winner is the best that we're going to get from a leaker, and apparently, nobody in the media is really going to care about the documents that Chelsea Manning leaked. What do you make of that going forward? And what this sort of means in a larger scale in terms of, leakers and just the whole legacy of Manning and WikiLeaks and all those things. I know that's a huge question, so, go, Rob.
Well, it is. there's definitely something noteworthy about certain aspects of the mainstream media, and it's worth differentiating. There are still people in the mainstream media who are actually refusing to call Chelsea Manning by she. I mean, there's like neocon writers who are writing for the Wall Street Journal and stuff who are not only sort of mocking her gender transition, but also still calling her a traitor that should have never had her sentence commuted. So there is that happening, but at the same time, there is this sort of media campaign, almost like PR campaign for her getting out of prison, which is strange that 7 years later, now Good Morning America and the New York Times or New York Magazine, was that where the photo shoot was? I forgot. But that it's almost like, and I hate using the word sexualizing her, but it kind of is like I almost feel like it's an intersection of enough time has passed, to heal from those wounds. And it also symbolically represents something good, maybe, that Obama did. Maybe that's a stretch for me to say, because sure, a lot of normal people don't think that was a good move. But for people like me, I think that was one of the best things Obama decided to do towards the end of his presidency. If I was going to make a list of good things that he did, I mean, making Chelsea stay in prison for 7 years wasn't good, but, he could have left her in there. So I think it was a good thing. So I think maybe that's part of it, is it symbolically makes Obama look like he was a good guy, and he took compassion out on her. Because the media undeniably still loves Obama. They always have. It's somehow they kind of had a love fest that never ended with him. But I don't know if I entirely believe that. But I do think there is an intersection happening here between, post Caitlyn Jenner era. The media is hungry for a new trans celebrity that's actually, that's interesting to them. I think it gets ratings for the media, and I think it's great that Chelsea managed to, transition in prison and actually got the military to give her hormone treatment and all that stuff. I think that's fantastic. But the media, I think, is definitely looking at it from a ratings perspective. And I think they're kind of, as sad as it is, they've sort of moved on from being like, well, we want to sort of present what trans rights is or how this should be presented to society. They're more looking at it like Caitlyn Jenner was like a hot commodity, like a celebrity for them to get ratings from. But I think that, I think that's definitely part of it, unfortunately. But, I would like to see Chelsea Manning go to some alternative media networks and have like frank conversation about what happened to her, why she decided to leak to WikiLeaks, how she feels about people turning her into an anti-war hero now. I know that she had some issues with that. She even said she's not like she doesn't want to be considered some anti-war hero. So I would just love to see her go back to, sort of some of the outlets that essentially called her a hero in the first place, So I don't know. I mean, I have very complicated feelings about it. I don't want to throw any, shade towards Chelsea Manning whatsoever, because I think what she did was amazing. I mean, as far as a modern whistleblower goes, I think that she is, probably my favorite one. So, that's kind of where I stand with it right now.
No, I totally know what you mean, Rob. And again, I mean, this is not, I personally, Pierce Redmond, know many trans people, have worked with a lot of trans people, through, what my job and other things, this is not like meant to attack anybody or whatever. But there's almost this like fetishizing of Chelsea Manning. Like you said, it's like this celebrity, this post Caitlyn Jenner world, where we sort of want this, we want the new sort of trans celebrity, and we're not really going to give them any, we're not really going to dive into even why you wanted to do this or what it is about, or even, what happened prior to this. I mean, that's what I find so kind of like, upsetting or disconcerting is that, and this is something that Tom and I were talking about. Tom, I'll throw it to you, but I mean this idea that, what Bradley Manning did is now irrelevant. It doesn't matter. that, and the way that people are willing, you know, like you said, Robbie, good morning America. When the fuck did they give a shit when, you know, Manning was being put in solitary confinement? You know, you know, now suddenly, oh my God, you tried to commit suicide? Oh, that's so horrible. Oh no, you know, and let's, you know, show pictures of you crying and stuff like that. But I mean, where were they 3 or 4 years ago? Nowhere. But suddenly now it's like, okay, and there's almost this sort of like, again, this idea or this perspective or something that Bradley Manning no longer exists. What Bradley Manning did is no longer relevant. And this is not to say like that they're two different people. You know, I would, you know, they were always the same person. Just whatever, their genders were different or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really think that like, I don't think Bradley Manning is dead necessarily. You know, I mean, if Bradley Manning was always Chelsea Manning, I'm pretty sure they still would have leaked these documents. That doesn't change what happened back then. But I mean, I don't know, Tom, I'm kind of like rambling on. Maybe you can sort of zone in on what we were talking about yesterday in regards to this. But it's sort of odd the way that again it's like whatever happened is gone. That's irrelevant now. We've moved on. This is the new Caitlyn Jenner. End of story. Let's just focus on that. You know, it's like let's just focus on, what is Chelsea gonna wear in her new interview? You know? I don't know. Yeah. What do you make of it?
Well, to go back to where we began with this particular question, the timing of it all is curious. That, and I want to go back a few years. You may remember that when Chelsea Manning was first convicted, and the story was basically, you know, it's that's that, it's over. It wasn't that long after that we got Snowden. Almost like that was a replacement story. And you remember the hype around Snowden that there was in the first 3-4 months of that story. No one talked about Chelsea Manning. No one gave a damn anymore. And it was actually at that point that people stopped caring about Chelsea Manning, the whistleblower, Chelsea Manning, the person who's in prison, Chelsea Manning who did something to try and expose the war on terror, or at least get some kind of more sincere, realistic discussion going about what we're doing here and why. All of that got dropped in favor of Edward Snowden. And so it already happened by that point. Fast forward a few years, now we get another curiously, perhaps it is a coincidence in terms of timing, but maybe it isn't, where, okay, that part of the story of Chelsea Manning being in prison, that's now over. And now we've got a new criminal, whistleblower, traitor, whatever, to talk about. And that's where all the focus is going to be for the people who want to talk about that. And as a result, once again, no one's really going to talk about what happened to this person. Because it was a bit of a travesty, really. I find it kind of bizarre that has got lost in all of this story. But why has it happened? I think Robbie's definitely onto something in terms of the media sexualizing and fetishizing this, turning her into a kind of commodity for them to just get ratings with. And that's part of a much, much broader trend of the commodification of identity, right? That this is what happens, not to get too kind of European philosopher about it, but this is what happens in late stage capitalism. Having commodified most of the material world, it's only really the air supply and things like that aren't actually commodified at this point in time. It's like, what else can you commodify? Well, you can commodify cyberspace, you can commodify belief, religion, all of those kinds of things. That's very much happened. You can also commodify identity, whether that be on an individual or collective scale, whatever. And that has, you know, very, very much happened since, like, industrial growth basically stopped, or at least peaked in the 1970s. One of the, you know, the next place for capitalism to go was people's identities and beliefs and so on. And so that's what's happened. And hence, you can now get media ratings, better media ratings talking about someone's sex change than you can talking about the biggest political issue of our time. So, and that's partly a result of that. The other thing is identity politics, that as the left has moved away from real political situations, usually war and economic equality, or something more approximating economic equality, the things that it used to believe in and used to be the mainstay of the left's political discussion, as it's moved away from those things and moved towards issues of sexism, racism, trans rights, whatever else, this is where it's ended up, where this is now the focal point for a lot of left-wing political commentators, and that they're more comfortable talking about this because I guess it's a safer topic. It's like in order to sort of be seen as loyal and genuine and sincere, you simply have to express sympathy for people. Well, okay, that's great. Of course you should sympathize with people, particularly people who are downtrodden or being abused in some way. But that alone is not really a political argument. It's not really a basis for building a government, say, or trying to get someone elected or what have you. And this is one of the problems that, this is one of the reasons why Trump won. It's because Breitbart in particular seized hold of this identity politics, co-opted it for the right, got a lot of, pissed off people and said, we're going to look after your interests and we're going to trample on these other people if necessary. And a lot of people voted for that. So, like I say, you've got two twin things going on here, the commodification of identity and the rise of identity politics. And that's what's led us to this point where the discussion about Chelsea Manning, like you say, is about what's she going to wear, what was her personal emotional experience, like she's on fucking Oprah or something, and not about, what happened to you and how is your emotional experience attached to that? It's like the emotional experience is just something for the soap opera crowd, for the Oprah talk show crowd to discuss. It's being done in that very superficial way, rather than this is something that happened in the context of you trying to do the right thing and getting hammered for it. So, like you were saying, it's almost like Bradley Manning, the person that Chelsea Manning was, no longer exists, not only in the sense that Chelsea Manning is now a different person to some extent, but also that none of that happened. I mean, it did, but we don't talk about it. So if we don't talk about it, did it really happen? Does it have any impact and relevance anymore? When it really should. Because I'm with Robbie. As far as recent whistleblowers go, this, that was something that did make a difference. There was a lot more skepticism towards the Iraq war because of this, and towards the war on terror in general because of this. So there was an impact, and a positive impact. I mean, the war on terror is still kind of a shit show, but at least we're not invading Syria, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to see, silver lining here. But as far as whistleblowers go, there's not that many that have a huge amount of impact or necessarily have a huge amount of credibility in my eyes. But Chelsea Manning's one of them. And yet it's just kind of been lost somehow.
Well, I mean, there's also, I mean, it's just like I think it's easy to attack her, because you even have, I mean, imagine, if there was never this question of trans rights or anything, that Manning never transitioned, none of that. I mean, would we even care what's going on? I mean, would Bradley Manning have been the celebrity that we all know of? I mean, and at the same time, it's also it's this wonderful thing where the alt-right, which is supposed to be so whatever, they've got all the answers to all this shit. They're supposed to love whistleblowers and government corruption and Manning did this under Obama, so it's even better. But they're still kind of like, I don't really give a fuck, I don't want to have to talk about trans equality or anything like that. And it's a very easy way to dismiss all of it, and I don't know. I mean, again, it's there's something about all of this where it is almost like, I do wonder, like, is this sort of like the kind of the bookend to whistleblowing and leaking? Because when you have someone like Chelsea Manning, who for all intents and purposes that's gotta be one of the biggest leaks, one of the more influential ones in our lifetime and certainly in the past several decades, yet it's sort of like it never really happened. Because it's like we're kind of done talking about that. And even beyond that too, it's like the question is always like, oh God, what was it like when you were suffering, when you couldn't get hormone treatment? Not what was it like when you were suffering in solitary confinement, which is like a broad issue that a lot of people should be concerned with, because there's countless people in probably even worse circumstances than Chelsea Manning was in. Life without parole in solitary, you're locked up 23 hours a day, with no end in sight. Yet that's not even really the question. It's like, oh God, what, and this isn't to like diminish trans equality or the problems that are faced by trans people. But it's sort of like a way of talking about what happened to Chelsea Manning without actually it's like no context, It's like, why couldn't you get hormone treatment? Oh, right, because you were in a military prison because you leaked thousands of classified documents, Instead it becomes this like, it's a story. It's like, again, contextless. I don't know. Robbie, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a reset. Like you said, this is a bookend to whistleblowers in a way, because I feel like with Chelsea Manning, it was the end of an era where we really didn't see another leaker like that come out after Chelsea Manning. And I think it's also worth remembering that most of the media attention was given to the collateral murder video, which happened during the Bush administration. It was something really horrible that happened during the Iraq War under Bush. But yet Chelsea Manning also leaked a second video to WikiLeaks that showed an Obama war crime taking place, where over 130 civilians were killed in an airstrike in Afghanistan. There, I think, missing here, where I do think the Obama administration was very good at doing these sort of PR rebranding campaigns, if you want to call it a rebranding of the U.S. government, the image of the U.S. government, to clean up the public face of all the damage that Bush had done to it. I think it's possible the Obama administration, was okay with certain leaks coming out that made the previous administration look bad. Things like the torture reports coming out, the CIA torture reports. I believe that Obama wanted those kinds of disclosures to come out. You could also make the argument that some of the NSA documents that came out actually benefited the Obama administration. But the WikiLeaks says that there was a Swedish intelligence operation and various things that actually rendered that video inaccessible, or that it was stolen from them. I don't know. Part of me wonders if, the Obama administration somehow prevented it from coming out, or if WikiLeaks withheld its release. A lot of their explanations for why that video never came out don't make sense. So I think at that moment, when that video came out, we may have sort of been seeing a bookend to sort of that, what a legitimate whistleblower could really do and damage it could do to a current administration. And I don't know. I keep thinking about that video, because while the media still, they're almost like forced to talk about collateral murder. It's not something they could brush under the rug. Even though we haven't seen the Ghorani massacre video from Afghanistan, we know that it happened. It's just that the media wasn't forced to talk about it. They mentioned it a few times, but since we haven't seen it, the video never came out, they can brush that under the rug. I think that would have done enormous damage to the Obama administration pretty early into his administration. It's also unfortunate to think back to the Adrian Lamo transcripts with Chelsea Manning, where he effectively, tells Chelsea Manning that he's a priest and anything that she tells him will be, confidential in the same way you tell a priest. And she describes being in the wrong body and being really uncomfortable in her body. She doesn't use the word transgender, but it's very evident from the transcript. She was telling something to Adrian Lamo that was extremely private, and the media essentially outed that for her too. Like, without her choice, so I think that's also playing a factor here where it's like right out of the gates, back then transgender rights and things weren't a subject talked about in the media. I think even back then there was part of that spin was sort of used to smear her. Like, look, this person is also transgender and maybe they're a little nutty and manic and that's why they did this. Like that seemed to be the spin right when, Chelsea Manning was outed. And so I don't know. It is strange how there's been a boomerang effect where now not a boomerang effect, but we're back. We're somewhere now where now the mainstream media is very accepting of trans rights and they don't, sort of cast any aspersions on that now. So, but back then I think they kind of did. I mean, that was 7 years ago. So I don't know. My feelings are very complicated about it. So.
No, as are mine too, and it is a complicated subject too. And again, the mainstream media is comfortable with it, but only, up until a point. And, to play this sort of, bleeding liberal heart card here or whatever, God forbid they show a black transgender person, which are way more oppressed. I'm sorry, sorry to burst anybody's bubble, way more oppressed than fucking Caitlyn Jenner ever was. Or, just whatever. Or Chelsea Manning. There's plenty of, transgender people of color out there you don't even fucking know about. Way higher suicide rates, way higher domestic abuse, physical abuse, all those sorts of things. But, the media is never, ever, ever going to do that. That would be a bridge too far. But we can talk about, Caitlyn Jenner is great. That's fine. And Chelsea Manning is okay. That's about as far as we're going to go with all of this. And it'll be very, without any context, and it'll be a very controlled news story and whatnot. And that'll be that. I don't know. I'm kind of I think we might have, exhausted everything on Chelsea Manning and Reality Winner. So I'll go to Twitter right now, and I had a tweet just before I went on from Joseph Ballin asking us to talk about North Korea. And of course we've got Dennis Rodman heading over to North Korea, and that's always fun. So maybe we'll switch this up, and in the final half hour we'll talk a little bit about Dennis Rodman and Kim Jong-un. What do you guys make of this? Because again, this is interesting timing too. And I think we know that Dennis Rodman is a fan of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has tweeted, or has, shown his support of Dennis Rodman and vice versa. What do you guys make of it? Do you think Donald Trump is sending Dennis Rodman out there, to talk or something? I know that Dennis Rodman apparently went out, a company called Potcoin, I want to say, which is a cryptocurrency specially designed for legal cannabis businesses to operate with. Oh. They've apparently, I think, funded Rodman's most recent trip to North Korea, to the Hermit Republic or something. What do you guys make of this?
Wow.
Any one of you can go first.
Go. I'm kind of drawing a blank on this one.
Well, I think we should bear in mind, Dennis Rodman is crazy. This is a man who married himself. Let's not forget. So he is prone to doing things that most people would never even consider in 20 lifetimes. The fact that he's developed such a close relationship with Kim Jong-un, well, we do know that he's been there several times now. I think it's at least half a dozen anyway. We know he's spoken to the FBI when returning from these trips, as you'd expect. We also know that multiple people, including myself, have filed freedom of information requests with the CIA asking about Dennis Rodman, and they've never released anything or admitted to anything. So, is it possible that he's somehow an agent of the state? it would be very strange, but then stranger people have been agents of the state in some way. It's something that goes back at least to the Second World War, is, celebrities being in some way used for intelligence or propaganda purposes. So it's not something we can rule out. I doubt that he's been sent there to negotiate on anything, because I can't believe even the CIA or even Donald Trump actually maybe Trump, being stupid and crazy enough to think that, Dennis Rodman, he's a good guy, when you're in a pinch, he's your guy that you send in to do some straight talking and get everyone around the table and sort that mess out. I don't think that's what's going on here, just because if it is, it's the worst attempt at negotiation in history. But wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall in that conversation? Because Kim Jong-un is also pretty crazy. I don't remember him ever marrying himself, but he's done equally crazy things. So he keeps declaring war on the United States. He's declared war on the United States about as many times as Dennis Rodman has been over there, actually. So there's very much a theatrical element to all of this to begin with. And one wonders, a distraction maybe? I mean, let's face it, every time Dennis Rodman goes to North Korea, it's a news story, because it's still almost as amazing as it was the first time it happened. It's kind of impossible not to talk about this. So therefore, one wonders if there is some kind of, shady game being played. Maybe it's more about that. It's, feed them yet another weird geopolitics plus aging celebrity story.
Well, again, the timing is interesting too, because we've got this, Otto Warmbier, who is a U.S. Student who was jailed in North Korea for, I don't know, espionage against the state. I think he tried to take like a banner or something out of a hotel or a museum, and he was sentenced to like 15 years hard labor in North Korea. He's just been released. Now, I assume this is, Rex Tillerson is the one that announced this, and one would assume that Rex Tillerson or somebody within the State Department is what helped negotiate this. But I did find it interesting that this kid gets released as Dennis Rodman is like landing in North Korea. And sort of on what you were saying there, Tom, agent of the state, I don't think the CIA has much faith in, Dennis Rodman, like, is some sort of agent or someone that, like, when you really gotta, get something done, just call up Dennis and he'll help. But, I do wonder, I mean, listen, they're letting this guy go there. They could just as easily, revoke his passport. I mean, I don't think is he flying directly to North Korea? Can you even do that? Maybe you can, so. But yeah, I mean,
you probably have to go in through China or something.
Right. So, I mean, it's, and then he's coming back. I mean, again, passport control. Oh, where were you? North Korea. What the hell were you doing there? Oh, I was just hanging out with Kim Jong-un. I mean, that's not generally how it happened. So you do wonder, is this like a back channel? Because, I mean, when he first went, he gave, I think, an interview with like Piers Morgan or some idiot on CNN or something like that. And Rodman was saying, like, he wants to talk. And this was, poo-pooed by people and oh, yeah, I don't want to. But like, that might be how Kim Jong-un tells you, he wants to talk and let's negotiate or something like that. And let's just be honest too, when Dennis Rodman is in North Korea, they're not shooting missiles, aimed at South Korea and Japan. They're just hanging out, smoking cigars and watching basketball and things. So I do wonder if there isn't a level of like, let's let him go there. Let's see what he says. I mean, at some point, Kim Jong-un has got to be like, hey, if you can get a message, and maybe Trump will listen. I don't know. I mean, that's what's so pathetic, is that he probably would listen to Dennis Rodman before he listens to, whatever, his CIA advisor on North Korea.
Didn't the Obama administration send Bill Clinton over there to negotiate with them to release those 2 reporters at one time?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Which was odd, because I think it was at his request, Kim Jong-il's request, when he was still alive. So that was odd that, he asked someone who wasn't even in government at the time to come and negotiate their release. So they're just they just have weird appreciation for certain celebrities, I guess, and Dennis Rodman is one of them. But I'm curious about this Potcoin angle to it, because it's a cryptocurrency that has a maximum supply of 420 million Potcoins. And I just wonder, apparently there is a big amount of weed being grown in North Korea, and it's legal there. So I wonder if this has anything to do with that. If it's just a coincidence.
Is it?
Yeah. Yep.
That I did not know.
And it's a cryptocurrency, so is this going to be some kind of money laundering method for you to get around their sanctions? I mean, it's just kind of an odd thing, for them to sponsor something like this. But I don't know. That's just where my mind goes.
No, that is. I mean, I'm looking at pictures of Dennis Rodman landing in either Seoul or in Pyongyang, and he's got a Potcoin shirt. And I think he's with the Potcoin CEO is with him. So I don't know. Maybe I didn't realize that weed was legal in North Korea. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I've just Googled it. There's a lot of articles saying that, so I can only assume so.
So if they're growing it, maybe they're trying to figure out a way to export it or make money, invest into Potcoin. I don't know. I mean, they're sanctioned, and so they probably need to figure out a way to get some money flowing.
That is a fascinating angle. That is one that we definitely need to explore. I mean, that's crazy. So I guess in North Korea, you can't speak out against the government, but you could smoke weed?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Governments have quite often employed that sort of law in order to keep people who are economically impoverished kind of doped up and passive and kind of accepting it. And I will also add another thing that's just come up when, as I was Googling this, is a Business Insider article that says that this cryptocurrency is soaring in value after it sponsored this event. So evidently all the media attention on Dennis Rodman is doing wonders for them. Makes you wonder, maybe that's the motive behind this, or at least certainly one of the motives behind this. But how on earth did they find out that Rodman was going again? Does he have shares in this? Or, does he have some of this cryptocurrency and, therefore he's worth it? So, there's a lot of there's a conjunction of lots of different things here, for sure.
No. If Roger Stone is involved in it, then we might have our answer. Roger Stone is invested in Potcoin. Maybe he sits on the board.
I guess it's like, what does that mean for society right now when you got Dennis Rodman going to North Korea, and on some levels, he's not necessarily an emissary of the U.S., but certainly whatever, like you said, Tom, he's going to be debriefed when he comes back. There's no way he's avoiding, FBI, CIA people when he lands back in wherever, New York or L.A., wherever the hell he's going. I don't know, wherever Potcoin is located. He's definitely going to be answering some questions. So, I mean, again, it's like, what the fuck is it end times where we've got Dennis Rodman going to North Korea, sort of, helping the CIA in some capacity, and it's all for, some weed version of Bitcoin. I don't know. I don't know if that's scary or if that's a positive or if this is just, and then, you got Reality Winner in another corner. So, I don't know. I mean, it is like, I mean, again, this is sort of like what, we've talked about this many times before, but I mean, it's sort of the deification of celebrities and celebrity culture. I mean, the
merging of celebrity culture with politics. we've discussed that loads on the CIA in Hollywood. And here again we have it. We won't get into the interview and all of that nonsense, but I will say it'd make a great reality TV show, wouldn't it? Following Dennis Rodman on one of his trips to North Korea.
Oh my God, I know.
You'd watch that, you know? Because how couldn't you? I mean, how couldn't anyone watch this event? It's a remarkable sign of our times.
Don't give Vice any ideas.
No, maybe
going to be on Viceland.
I know. I'm actually surprised Vice has him, and that sounds like right up their alley. But didn't they do that the first time?
Bring Dennis Rodman with them?
Yeah, right?
I think Shane Smith just walked through one of those like checkpoints and acted all scared for like an hour.
Okay, right, yeah. Were you saying something there, Tom?
Well, just that whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing, I guess anything that possibly normalizes relationships with North Korea has to be a good thing, because that is a government that is completely bonkers, and bonkers to the point of maybe actually being dangerous. Probably mostly dangerous to themselves and South Korea, admittedly, but still, that's, you know, it's enough people to be worried about it. So, yeah, we've got to try and see this as a good thing. I mean, what bad is going to come from this? What potential negative consequences? I mean, he's not going to try and nuke California just because Dennis Rodman says the wrong. Well, maybe he is. Okay.
Or Dennis Rodman is U.S. intelligence and is collecting information that nobody from the U.S. intelligence can get this close to, and is just figuring out that they're completely toothless. I don't know. Maybe.
You see, I actually do think that's more not that Rodman is but he's, how many Americans get access to the inner circle? You know, you'll hear a lot of these pundits out there and, you know, North Korea watchers and Asia experts talking about what's going on behind the scenes in North Korea, but they have no fucking clue. You know, maybe South Korean intelligence, the KCIA might know. You know, they must have somebody there. But most of these pundits out there, they have no, it's like these rumors that, you know, Kim Jong-un is feeding his uncle to rabid dogs or something, you know, in gladiatorial arena. I mean, you don't fucking know what he's doing. That's the whole point. And that's why they're so unpredictable. Yet, Dennis Rodman probably does know what's going on. I mean, he at least knows what is going on within Kim Jong-un's inner circle. So, and he must be telling people, somebody in the government is asking him what's happening. What did you see? You know, does Kim Jong-un look healthy? Is he happy? Is he depressed? He must be, he is some sort of source of information and intelligence. As pathetic as that sounds. You know.
Well, desperate times call for desperate measures, and Rambo wasn't available, so they got the next best thing.
Yes. No, I know. And again, I mean, it is that blending between celebrity, politician. I mean, this is like
spy.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, it's like all of these things sort of wrapped up into one. And now, you know, let's sex it up a little bit more. We got drugs. You know, Potcoin, cryptocurrencies, all of these sorts of things.
Well, and the possibility for future stories about North Korea hacking cryptocurrencies and blah, 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 because apparently North Korea, even though they're running on computers from 1985, are, you know, genius hackers. They're up to all sorts of nonsense. So, you know, it lays down some roots that could spring up into some funny, ridiculous, almost certainly untrue news stories to come. So that's something to look forward to. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm finding it hard not to just make jokes about this, really.
I mean, yeah, well, there's no way around that, you know. But I don't know. Now I've run out of my notes and everything on Dennis Rodman, Potcoin, and Reality Winner. I mean, do you guys have anything? I mean, anything you wanted to kind of well, actually, Robbie, I know you just wrote something recently for Mint Press, right, on Robert Mueller. Maybe we could get back to some serious stuff now that we've sort of taken a a bit of a break and talked about Dennis Rodman. You want to tell us a little bit about this article that you're writing?
Sure. Yeah. It's so Robert Mueller is being appointed as special counsel for this Russian interference, Russiagate investigation right now. And there's already been talk the last few days that Trump is going to try to figure out a way to get rid of him. But I just thought it was an interesting choice. I'm not exactly sure who picked him to be the special counsel, but it's an interesting choice because out of all the blame that was going around after 9/11, where they tried to pin some blame on every individual intelligence agency in some way or another, sort of spread the blame around. The FBI was actually solely responsible for the anthrax investigation, the 2001 anthrax attacks investigation, and Robert Mueller was directly involved in trying to essentially set up Stephen Hatfill as the sole perpetrator and smear his name in the press. And Robert Mueller was actually sued along with Eric Holder and several other people in the Justice Department in the actual accusation, the lawsuit, and the lawsuit was filed by the lead investigator in the anthrax investigation working under Robert Mueller, named Richard Lambert. And in his lawsuit, it says that Robert Mueller stovepiped information to him purposely, hid and omitted things about the anthrax investigation to lead them astray, so they couldn't figure out who the perpetrator was. So that's actually in an official lawsuit by this former FBI employee. But in the lawsuit, he's basically alleging that the government is making him unemployable and has essentially spread a rumor throughout not rumor, but have told other government agencies not to hire him because he raised too many questions in the anthrax investigation case, and was very disappointed when they had closed it and pinned it on Bruce Ivins, even though he felt that they didn't have enough evidence to. So Robert Mueller, I just think, is a very questionable character in all this. I mean, almost like he's there to just clean things up or fix things up, and it doesn't seem like he's there to do that for the Trump administration. It seems like he might be there sort of to serve the role of helping this, these people who are pushing this Russiagate conspiracy. So the article I wrote is basically just about his role in covering up the 2001 anthrax attacks, because, if you can blame it on anybody, really put it at their doorstep, it would be his. I mean, there's not enough evidence to suggest that the Bush administration was twisting his arm to do certain things. It was almost like he knew it was his duty to cover that incident up. And I don't even think it's an exaggeration to say that he was directly involved in covering it up. So.
No, I thought the Mueller thing was an interesting appointment because it does beg the question, is this, who is this really going to benefit? Is he going to bring down the Trump administration? I don't know, but, is he going to just sort of cover it up, or, whatever that might be, whatever this collusion with the Russians may or may not be? I can't see Robert Mueller. I don't know. I am genuinely intrigued by what side of the coin he's going to take with this, because at some point, you can't just have endless hearings. They have to at some point come to a conclusion with all of this. Even with the Benghazi stuff, eventually they just sort of whatever. We've exhausted every hearing that we can possibly get on this, and let's just sort of leave it there. So you do wonder, at what point is this going to end? Or, I don't know. Maybe this whole impeachment thing isn't so pie in the sky. I think it is. I think it's kind of a pipe dream. But you do get a Robert Mueller in there. You do kind of wonder, what is the, end game for that? Tom, any thoughts on Robert Mueller?
Well, he, like Robbie says, he's got a history of doing what's expected of him in investigations, I guess. But the question is, who expects what from him? That's what we don't know, is, like you say, who's pulled the string, and we've ended up with him, of all people, being the special prosecutor here. And, yeah, I mean, I've seen these rumors about Trump is supposedly already trying to get rid of him, but even if he does, they'll just appoint another one anyway. So there is some kind of shenanigans going on here. Yeah. Certainly I share your suspicions on that, Robbie, that this appointment, they haven't just sort of, picked the obvious name. They've picked someone who has an experience with investigations and knows how to look in the right places or not look in the right places, depending on what his remit and his sort of marching orders really are. So we'll have to keep an eye on this and try and figure that out. Figure out what is he avoiding, or what is he, going after. Because that'll tell us most likely who it is who somehow engineered him into that spot so that he can perform the role that he's there to perform.
Yeah, because it's odd. I mean, it does seem like is this the administration? Endless hearings, I mean, and at some point, I mean, Trump can fire as many people as he wants, but at some point, I mean, you can't just keep firing the people that are supposed to be investigating you. And all it does is make him look more guilty, which I genuinely don't even think is, I don't think he's like some Russian agent, that's being controlled by Putin in the Kremlin. I just don't believe that. Yet, every time he fires somebody or gets all pissy, and says I'm vindicated, or Comey is the leaker, Comey's the bad guy. I mean, that's rich too. He's 1 minute Comey is, vindicating me, but he's evil too. Don't trust Comey. Except when he's, saying I'm innocent. But it is like, I mean, you're just gonna have endless hearings that's just, I don't know. As fun as that is, seeing Trump on the ropes, it is kind of like, this is what we have to look forward to for 4, maybe 8 years. Although that really, endless hearings does make one wonder if Trump is even electable at this point. It doesn't look like it. But I don't know, maybe, fingers crossed we'll get Chelsea Manning and Dennis Rodman on the ticket or something like that. But, quickly, before, we wrap things up, Robbie, I know you've got, a very heavy agenda, a new, edition, or a new, installment in a very heavy agenda. When is that going to be coming out?
It's going to be coming out in late August of this year, and, check the Twitter account at Very Heavy Agenda for updates about that, or the website veryheavyagenda.com. But right now we're still selling DVDs and box sets of the first part, 1 through 3 of A Very Heavy Agenda, and it's still available on Vimeo as well.
Excellent, and we'll definitely have to get you on. I'm very excited for this next installment to see where everything is going in this film saga, this like epic. I guess now it'll be 4-parter. And Tom, anything you want to plug? Anything you want to let the listeners know about that you're working on? I will point out too, Tom and I did a great episode on Billion, so check that out. But anything you want to plug to the listeners, Tom?
Well, just to say that after the last couple of episodes of Clandestine, where events took over and I got a bit distracted and other things, I got away from the Al-Qaeda series. We will be returning to that in the next episode, this weekend's episode, talking all about the destruction of Yugoslavia and Al-Qaeda in Bosnia and all of that. So, yeah, we'll be getting back to that soon.
Excellent. Well, Robbie Martin, Tom Secker, thank you for joining me for this very odd discussion of reality winner Dennis Rodman, Robert Mueller, and much more. I'll be coming to you next week with a legendary private investigator, Pat McKenna, discussing more about the O.J. Simpson trial. But until then, I will be talking to you very soon.
News and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
Nutritious food is real body armor. It builds muscle, burns fat, improves digestion, and feeds the entire body the nutrients it needs. Did you know the U.S. government banned the hemp plant from growing in the United States and classified it as a Schedule I drug to hide it behind the marijuana plant? People have been confused about this plant for over 80 years, and many still don't know what hemp is. So now you know hemp is not marijuana, and marijuana is not hemp. They are different varieties of the same species. HempUSA.org wants the world to know these basic facts and to help people understand that hemp protein powder is the best kept health secret you need to know about. Remember, hemp protein powder contains 53% protein, is gluten-free, anti-inflammatory, non-GMO, and is loaded with nutrients. Call 888-910-4367, 888-910-4367, and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.